Thank you very much, Darren, and we all of us wish you well in finding work. Conference, can I thank the Prosperity and Work Commission and all the party members who've contributed to their debates this year. Can I thank too the Work and Pensions Ministerial team, Jim and Angela, Jonathan, Helen and Bill, who work so hard on all of our behalf. And can I thank all of you for the work that you have been doing and support you have given us to help people through the recession and help people through the difficult times. Conference, when we gathered in Manchester last year, the world economy was on the brink. We had, as we remember, banks bigger than nations teetering on the edge of collapse, fearful families moving their savings from one bank to another, and the madness of markets in crisis, and the terrifying realization that the things that people took for granted might all come crashing down. But we learned something else in that crisis. We learned about the strength of peoples, governments, nations standing together in the face of that storm, both to calm the storm, but also to stop recession turning into slump. And we learned too of the importance of the strong leadership of our Chancellor and our Prime Minister, and we thank them and pay tribute to them now, Alistair Darling and Gordon Brown. And Conference, never forget how close we came to catastrophe last year. And never forget, too, how easy it would have been for governments to stand back, to turn their backs, to retrench, because that is what governments did in the 1930s. And for years, working people paid that price. It's what the Tory government did in the 1980s. And for decades, generations of young people paid that price. And Conference, that's what David Cameron and George Osborne wanted us to do again. Conference, we know that unemployment is never a price worth paying, and this Labour government will never leave people to stand alone. Conference, our Labour government won't turn its back on people hit by recession or global crisis, because we know unemployment hurts and unemployment scars. And that's why we're putting an extra £5 billion into jobs and training. And Conference, that support and our welfare reforms are making a difference. In just 3 months this summer, more than 500,000 people who were out of work found jobs. But it is still hard. And that's why now's the time to increase, not cut back, on the action that is helping people into jobs. Programmes like the local employment partnerships between Job Centre Plus and businesses in every one of our constituencies that are working to get people into jobs. Helping people like Anthony, who I talked to in Castleford, who got a job after 14 months on the dole. He told me it's transformed his life. He's now got a place of his own, he's doing management training, and he's had his first ever holiday abroad. And I talked to Rebecca Robertson, who is the Job Centre Plus advisor in Castleford, who helped Anthony get work, about how she does it. She said, I like to get under the employer's skin to know what they really need, and then I can make sure I get people ready for the job. She gets people training, she boosts their confidence. She even goes along to the interview with them if they need it. And she told me that she even takes a spare pair of tights or a spare tie along in her bag, just in case. And Conference is people like Rebecca who are going the extra mile to help people not just into a job, but to build a future. Conference, that's public service. For Conference, we still need to be more ambitious. There are thousands more people like Anthony, like Darren, who we want to help, so we will do more. And I can announce today we will expand those successful local partnerships to help far more people. Already, they've helped 250,000 people into jobs. So now we'll treble our original plans to help a total of 750,000 people into jobs by the end of next year, because no one should be denied the dignity of work. Conference, across the country, major employers have been signing up to the Backing Young Britain campaign. And from Bradford to Brighton, from Coatbridge to Cardiff, we've got local councils, housing associations, voluntary groups, football clubs, many organisations signing up to the £1 billion fund to deliver over 100,000 youth jobs, as we guarantee no young person is stuck on the dole for more than 12 months. Conference, even Tory councils are signing up, praising the programme and trying to claim the credit in the local papers. But hang on, where do they think the money is coming from to pay for these jobs? Conference, I'll tell you where the money's coming from. It's coming from the £5 billion extra investment that this government set out to help the unemployed, to boost the economy. That conference is £5 billion that George Osborne thinks should never have been spent, £5 billion the Tories want to cut. Conference, we need to challenge every Tory MP, every Tory council, every Tory councillor to tell young people why their party wants to destroy jobs, because Conference, the Tory party want to turn their backs on young people again, and we, the Labour Party, must not let them get away with it. So Conference, what would David Cameron offer people in place of the training places and the support that he wants to cut? In all the speeches he's made, he's offered just one policy to help the unemployed. As he told party members, Tory party members in July, 50 of our candidates, MPs and councillors, are setting up job clubs. So instead of 100,000 youth jobs, 50 Tory job clubs. Conference, imagine it. David Cameron might, to be fair, have some useful advice on interview techniques. And William Hague could certainly tell us a thing or two on how to get a second job or how to earn a bit of extra cash on the side. And Conference, imagine the rest. John Redwood on looking interviewers in the eye. Or Ken Clarke on how to dress for success. And we know what Norman Tebbett's advice would be. Go on a cycling proficiency course. Conference, but maybe there's a reason why David Cameron doesn't get the importance of training and employment support. For his first job, he had a royal equerry ring up on his behalf. For his second job, his mother-in-law, Lady Astor, put in a good word. But Conference, that's not how people like Anthony in Castleford get jobs. Back in the real world, thousands of people rely on the help that training colleges and job centres the Tories want to cut. Conference, the Tories say we can't afford to invest in helping the unemployed. I say, Conference, we can't afford not to. So, Conference, look at the facts. For every 100,000 people we get off unemployment, we save £700 million. There's no better way to cut the deficit once the economy's growing than to get people off benefit and back into work. That's why we'll make sure no one is written off, keeping up the employment support, the welfare reform that is getting people back off long-term benefits and into jobs, helping disabled people overcome discrimination to work, helping parents get the childcare they need, more support, but also making sure that everyone does their bit to find work, working with businesses, working with the voluntary sector, not a passive welfare state, but active support for work. But David Cameron doesn't believe in active government to help the unemployed, because David Cameron doesn't believe in active government. Their campaigns for Broken Britain, for an age of austerity, are all designed to break people's faith in a brighter future. They want us to despair of the purpose of politics or the role of government, a council of despair that would have run Britain into the ground if we had followed it last year. Conference, we know things are tougher in recession, but we know we can stand together and we can come through it stronger. We know there'll be tough choices on the public finances, but we'll make those tough choices guided by our vision of a fairer Britain for our parents, our children and our neighbours. And that's why we'll increase the top rate of tax and we won't cut inheritance tax for millionaires. That's Conference, that's why we'll keep helping families, backing Sure Start and child benefit, making sure mums and dads can balance work and family life, helping carers, and Conference, enshrining into law for the first time our historic commitment to end child poverty forever. Conference will keep doing more to help pensioners, tackling the decades of unfairness so thousands of women can get the full basic state pension that should be their right, requiring employers to make pension contributions for the first time for millions of low-paid workers. And Conference, because fuel bills are still high, as well as paying the winter fuel payments and the winter fuel allowance at the higher rate again, I can also announce that we will also pay the cold weather payments at the higher rate again this year, so that the poorest families aren't hit hardest by the winter cold. But Conference, you can't do any of those things if you don't believe in the role of government. You can't do any of those things if you don't believe in standing together for a fairer country. And Conference, you can't do any of those things if you have a Tory government. Conference, in the 1930s, one of the first ever women MPs, Ellen Wilkinson, marched with our forefathers from Jarrow to fight for jobs. In the 1980s, I marched with my father and with many of you under the union banners to fight for jobs. But Conference, we marched in vain because we didn't win the arguments, we didn't win power, and there was nothing more we could do to help. And that is why we have to fight now. That is why there is so much at stake. That is why the Labour Party has more to fight for than ever in our history, because Conference, we owe it to the young people today, but also to the Jarrow marchers we couldn't help, to the 80s unemployed that we couldn't support. We owe it to them to fight for every vote, to fight together to win the next election, and to keep fighting Conference for a fairer Britain too. Thank you.